Okay, it's live. Hi, everyone. So we had some difficulties. I was trying to do this to YouTube, but I didn't know that they had some kind of requirements you have to meet in order to do that on YouTube. And so I probably should have tried it out first. But nevertheless, we're here on Facebook. So today is still going to be the breastfeeding Q&A that I had talked about a while ago. So if you have any breastfeeding questions, I don't know, I think I'll be able to see them on here, or just motherhood questions in general. I also am celebrating my 1 year on YouTube, which is actually today. I uploaded my first YouTube video a whole year ago. So I'm celebrating that today. And I'm also celebrating my 100th YouTube video. So I did hit that milestone, I think maybe last week or so, but this is the official celebration of that. So, okay. Tag friends. Okay. I don't really know what I'm doing on here. I probably should have tried this out before. But anyway, so just a little background about me. So I started my YouTube channel, Shades of Sage, just because I am a doula, I am a mom of three, and I just really felt like moms need more support. And I love helping other moms on their motherhood journeys, and I love getting help from other moms. So I thought that that would be a good direction for my YouTube channel. I have been wanting to start a YouTube channel for a long time. If you've seen any decide to start my channel last year on April 19th, and I think my first video was 5 tips to successfully breastfeeding video. And from there, I've just been doing motherhood in general kinds of videos, doula support videos, breastfeeding, of course, support videos, and just sharing a little bit of my life as a mom and as a doula and all of that stuff. Feeding, extended breastfeeding, feeding into toddlerhood. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about breastfeeding is just because I feel like more moms need support getting the right information about breastfeeding or the correct information about breastfeeding. There's a lot of information out there, but not all of it is true. And I've heard some crazy things. So I just kind of want to make sure that moms who want to breastfeed are encouraged and that they have the right information so that they can continue on their breastfeeding journeys or start their breastfeeding journeys. Even on my channel, I talked a bit about weaning because a lot of people I feel like don't talk about weaning. And once you are breastfeeding, and then weaning is a whole nother process. So I talk a little bit about that on my channel, and I did a really long exclusive video about that because there is so much that goes into weaning. How long you want to breastfeed, then you have to deal with engorgement and safe ways to wean if you don't want to be, go cold turkey, which I don't recommend because that really hurts as well. Um, so some misconceptions about breastfeeding that I've heard. I've heard one, which is kind of silly. Um, oh, thank you so much, Esther. I was so nervous. I'm still a little bit nervous doing this because I wanted to do it on YouTube, and I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. And okay, but now we're here on Facebook. But okay, so one of the things that I've heard about breastfeeding is that Black women make chocolate milk. And that's not true at all. Our milk is the same color as any other nationality. It's not chocolate just because our skin is chocolate. It's milk, okay? And yeah, so that's one crazy thing I've heard. But again, you kind of have to filter where you're getting your information from, especially when it comes to breastfeeding, because if it's someone that didn't even breastfeed, or if it's someone that didn't breastfeed for a really long time, so they don't know like all the things that happen during breastfeeding, or like the cycles you go through of some women overproduce. I'm one of those women that overproduce. So as soon as my babies were born, I pretty much had milk that day. Other women, it takes them a little bit longer to produce, or they just need a little bit more help with milk production and just all of those things. And of course, when babies are born, they do lose a little bit of weight when you start breastfeeding, or they do lose a little bit of weight after they're born. So I think doctors don't want to really see them go lower than 10%. And sometimes breastfed babies, breast milk just is easily digestible for babies, so it runs to them quicker than like a formula fed baby. So you have to feed even more frequently. And my best tip for breastfeeding, especially if you're trying to breastfeed exclusively, is to breastfeed on demand. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, I just keep a very simple routine with my hair, so I think that's how it's so long. But thank you. And so, yeah, so for breastfeeding, just feeding on demand is like my best tip that I could say for breastfeeding, because with breast milk and breastfeeding, it's supply and demand. So as often as you put your baby to breast, that's how often you're signaling to your body to produce breast milk. And sometimes women think that they're suffering from a low milk supply when they're really not. They're really just, they need to put their baby to breast as often as you can. And I know sometimes if women have like a low supply, a lot of times people are like pump, 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 which is good. You can pump because it is taking milk out of the breast, which will signal to your body to produce more breast milk. But pumping and breastfeeding is not, they're not going to give you the same effect, because actually when you put a baby to breast milk, their saliva mixes with the mom's breast and with their nipples, and it's this whole chemical thing. So it signals to the body to produce more milk, whereas the pump doesn't, because it's plastic, it's artificial. Now, like I said, I'm a proponent for breastfeeding, so however you can get it is great, but it's better, it's best. You'll have better milk production if you're putting the baby to breast just as often as you can. And I know it's not realistic for everybody, because moms are out there working now. Some moms don't get as long in maternity leave as they need to. And then once they go back to work, then they struggle with pumping as much as they know they need to, or just really keeping that breast milk supply up, because they have other responsibilities, they have other things to do. With me, I'm very grateful, because my family supported me like 120%. Like, they were there for me. I never had an issue with breastfeeding around them. I never had anyone like, really discourage me from breastfeeding, at least not in my immediate family. Of course, I had some people, some people want to know why you're breastfeeding as long as you do, or why you don't use bottles. Like, I didn't use bottles. I'm just not a fan of bottles, but I know that other moms may need to use them. And if they do, then great. Use your bottles, use your pacifiers, use whatever you need. But if you are trying to breastfeed, at least in those first few weeks or so, you want to kind of refrain from the bottles or artificial nipples, because they're not the same as breast. And sometimes babies can prefer one to the other, and then mom will have a hard time trying to go back and forth between the bottles and breast. And it's just easier for babies to get the milk out of a bottle. So sometimes the babies still want the breast milk, but it's way easier for them to get it out of the bottle, and they may, prefer that. So I always say, if you're trying to incorporate bottles, or you're going back to work or whatever, try to incorporate it after you have a good breastfeeding relationship established. So after like 3 to 6 weeks, if you can wait that long. And then the same thing with pacifiers, because pacifiers do help the children with that need to suck, but it also, so say your baby's hungry, but you don't feed your baby, instead you give your baby a pacifier. Now you're kind of teaching them they not to follow their hunger cues, and your breast will produce less milk too. So especially in those early few weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, breastfeed on demand as much as you can, as often as you can, and try to follow the baby's feeding cues. I feel like that's the best thing that I could say if you're trying to breastfeed, especially breastfeeding exclusively, because if you follow their cues, you really can't go wrong. And like I said, again, breast milk runs through babies faster than formula, or any other kind of milk, that's not breast milk. Now, if you're having a problem producing enough milk, and you feel like you need to supplement, like if your baby has lost too much weight and the doctor says that you need to supplement, then you can do that. But definitely still try to put the baby to breast as often as you can. Another thing that's a really good tip to like increasing your milk supply is to, oh, hi, Faith, or Star. I don't know which one you want me to target, but hi. And thank you for that compliment, Miss Hicks. um, so the best thing is, like, if you're breastfeeding and you feel like you need more milk after your breastfeeding session, you can get on the pump and then completely empty your breast. And then I will signal to your breast to produce more milk as well. So I just want to know if anyone has any questions, maybe some myths that you've heard about breastfeeding and you wanted to know, or maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something else crazy that I've heard. Breast milk. Now, breast milk is the until a baby is 6 months old. I think some doctors, they say 5 months, some even say 4 months now, but until baby is 6 months old, breast milk is all that they need. And I know back in the day, people put cereal in bottles, or, introduce foods earlier. That's really all mom's preference. But until they're 6 months, they really don't need anything else. And then once they're 6 months, then you can start introducing solids, slowly, kind of like one at a time, just in case your baby has an allergy to something. You kind of want to, be mindful of that. But before then, they really don't need anything else. If they're getting the breast milk as often as they need to, or if they need formula, if you're doing that just as often as you can, I think, because breastfed babies eat about every 2 hours. And I only say two because sometimes it could be more than that. You may be thinking, again, with the low milk supply, you may be thinking, oh, my baby just ate, so I must not be producing enough because they're still hungry. But breastfed babies eat at least 8 to 12 times a day in a 24-hour period. So for me, for my kids, especially after like that first 3 to 6 weeks or so, they have growth spurts. And that's another thing, is that if you're following your baby's feeding cues, you'll notice when they're eating more or when they're eating less. Sometimes they'll eat more if they feel themselves getting sick. They'll eat more, and right before that growth spurt. So my kids, it was faithful. Like, I think that 3 week mark after my milk was in and they have regained their birth weight, which mine did fast because, like I said, I overproduced. So I always had enough milk for my children. But as soon as like that 3 weeks came, from like the hours of 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., they were cluster feeding. And so that's about every 30 minutes or every hour. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it is completely exhausted, especially if you're not using bottles. But cluster feeding helps them to get on like that weight and take them through that growth spurt. So you'll find your baby eating a little bit more during growth spurts. And there is a whole like list. If I can find it, I will link it. There's a whole list that shows you when your baby's going to have a growth spurt, and I think it's like 6 weeks, and then 3 months, and then another 3 months after that, and then another. So it's like every 3 months they'll have a growth spurt, but they do have a few back to back when they're first born. um so yeah, growth spurts, that will affect your breast milk supply too. Okay, what are some tips for moms who think they aren't making enough milk for their baby? Okay, so for those moms who think they're not making enough, before you go to formula to help you supplement, I would say, how often are you feeding your breastfed baby? So again, try to follow their feeding cues, but until they're at least 3 months old, I would say be feeding like every 2 hours. Now, once they are, like learning to sleep through the night, you can stretch it out a little bit longer, but especially in that first month or so, because you want to build up your supply. So you want to make sure that you have the milk there for those growth spurts. And you want to make sure that they reach their birth weight after they're born, because they will lose a little bit after the swelling goes down and everything. And they, recover from the trauma of birth, because birth is trauma as well for the baby and for mom. Once they regain that weight, then you can kind of like take it a little bit easy when it comes to breastfeeding, but you definitely want to make sure that they get their weight back up. And so before you go to like formula and all that stuff, make sure you're feeding your baby every 2 hours. With sleeping through the night, that's a tricky one. So for my kids, they didn't really sleep through the night until I kind of forced the issue. They were still waking up at least every 2 hours in a whole 24-hour period eating. And about like after 6 months, that's kind of when I wanted them to sleep a little bit longer. So if you find your baby is sleeping like too long, so like 8 hours and they're only 2 months old, that to me would be a worry if they're a breastfed baby, because they need to be eating. Like I said, breast milk goes through their systems faster than formula. So if they just ate, so like say, I don't know, their bedtime is 7 p.m. and they ate right before they went to sleep, and they're only about 2 months old, and now they're sleeping for 8 hours or longer than that, me personally, I will wake my baby up at that, probably like that 4 hour mark, and wake them up, feed them. You can do a dream feed. I did do one of those videos on my YouTube channel. So that's kind of like when they're still sleeping, but their suckle reflex, if you put a nipple to their mouth, they will suckle. So putting them up to your breast while they're still sleeping, and then they can continue sleeping, but you really just want to make sure that they're getting enough milk throughout the day. Okay. What is exclusively breastfeeding versus regular breastfeeding? Okay. So exclusively breastfeeding to me means, okay. Okay, I'm going to give you two definitions. Well, my definition is just breastfeeding breast milk straight from the breast. But to some other women, it may mean breast milk, period. So whether that's through the bottle or whatever, it may even be donor milk in some cases. If a mom is really, really passionate about her baby only having breast milk and maybe she doesn't have enough, or she can't breastfeed for medical reasons or whatever, she can use donor milk. So basically, breastfeeding exclusively means breast milk, but to me it means straight from the breast, because I know that that's the best way to maintain that supply. And there's a whole bunch of other good benefits of breastfeeding, you know, bonding with your baby, and just it's the best thing that they can have if you can do it. Okay, so those are the two. That's the answer. Breastfeeding exclusively to me just means straight from the breast, but to some women or to other moms, it may mean just breast milk only. But that's what it means to me. Do moms need to do anything to prepare for breastfeeding? Okay, well, I definitely think if you want to breastfeed or you plan on breastfeeding, you plan on having children in the future, definitely, you know, do your research. Watch, you know, videos like this, other YouTubers, other women who have breastfed, and, you know, get support from people who have actually done it, not just people who give support from people who have done it, because you want people that know kind of like those pitfalls before you get there. I even talked about, oh, what is it called? Not weaning. Oh, but nursing strikes. Like, a lot of women don't know that. And so if your baby goes through a nursing strike, that doesn't mean they're ready to start breastfeeding, especially if they're under the age of 1, because babies need breast milk or some kind of formula, milk, whatever, until the age of 1. That is their main part of their diet, or it's supposed to be anyway. So if your baby has a nursing strike, you know, some moms are like, oh, my baby doesn't want to breastfeed anymore, and then they just stop breastfeeding. But no, your baby still needs your breast milk. They just need to be encouraged to continue to breastfeed. And I know for my kids at 6 months, that's usually when they had their nursing strike. And I could kind of tell when it was going to happen, because they would get like really distracted when it came time to breastfeed, or they wouldn't breastfeed that long, or they would try to look at my phone or look at the TV or whatever. And I had to find like little tricks and ways to encourage them to breastfeed. And it usually lasted like a week or so, but I didn't give up, because I know this is our breastfeeding journey. This is what I want to do. And, you know, it was fine. But yeah, just don't give up. It's just, if you're having issues or whatever, try to find ways to troubleshoot it. So yeah, definitely talking to women who have been there, and it can help you on your breastfeeding journey. One crazy thing that I heard, I think I was telling Tiana earlier, is that moms need to prepare their breasts before they have their baby. So while they're pregnant, and rough them up a little bit, because because breastfeeding hurts, so they need to be prepared for the pain. So taking like a rough rag, or I don't know, I've heard some crazy things, and rubbing the nipples with that. Please don't do that. Remember, nipples are very sensitive, and if your baby is latched correctly, you won't, I want to say you shouldn't have pain. Everybody's level of sensitivity is different. But if your baby is latched correctly, you shouldn't really have that much pain breastfeeding. If you're having pain breastfeeding, or when your baby latches, you really want to check that latch. Your baby could have a lip tie. Your baby could have a tongue tie. So things like that would make breastfeeding hurt for you, but it shouldn't hurt. If the latch is correct and bearing any problems with the baby having a lip or tongue tie, it shouldn't hurt. So, or unless they're biting you. And that is another thing. I know sometimes women are breastfeeding and the baby starts biting them. And they're like, nope, that's it. Breastfeeding is done. You know, but just try to be gentle with them. A lot of times when their teeth are coming in, they'll, you know, kind of bite you to get some comfort or whatever. You just try to, you know, take it out their mouth and say, no, don't do that. Or, you know, try to redirect them somehow, or stop the breastfeeding session completely. And eventually they'll get, it's not okay to bite mom, but, you know, don't give up there. Oh, I seen another question. Okay. So those are some ways to prepare for breastfeeding. Is breastfeeding just a mommy and baby relationship, or can the dad help in another way with the process? Okay. So yes, dads, is breastfeeding relationship is for you too. And I would say my biggest thing is also that dads get the information that they need on how to support a breastfeeding mom. I know one couple that I watch, the mom was like, I handle the input and he handles the output. So that was their trade-off. She took care of all the feedings. And of course, if you're exclusively breastfeeding, all the feeding is on you. I know some moms pump because they want dad to be a part of that feeding process. If that works for you, that's fine too. You know, you can pump, you know, early in the morning is when mom has the most breast milk. So between like the hours of 2 to 8 a.m. is when you have the most breast milk. So that's a good time to pump if you want to pump and let dad be a part of the feeding process. But yeah, for that couple, they were like, mom does all the feeding and dad did all the changing. And that worked for them. But I did make a video about setting up your breastfeeding station. So dads, if you're there and you're in the home and you want to help, and you know mom's exclusively breastfeeding, just try to make sure that she has snacks. Like, I'm telling you, breastfeeding hunger is no joke. For me, I was literally starving. I could eat and 2 hours later be extremely hungry. And I'm not like it's just in my head or whatever. No, stomach growling, like really hungry. So breastfeeding hunger, you know, moms are burning a lot of calories breastfeeding, up to 500 calories a day. So you want to make sure that mom is hydrated. You want to make sure that mom has snacks on snacks on snacks, like anywhere. And my favorite go-to snack was protein bars or granola bars. Granola, oats in general are really good for breast milk supply. So yeah, dads, just make sure that you're supporting mom any way that you can. Another thing I want to mention to dads is that breastfeeding is it's an emotional process, it's a hormonal process and everything like that. I finished breastfeeding my last almost 5 months ago, and I would say like just now my hormones are starting to balance out. While mom is breastfeeding, she's still in a state of hormonal imbalance. So dads, try to, you know, be more sensitive with mom. The way her hormones were when she's pregnant is probably still going to be the same way while she's breastfeeding. And remember that she had like that emotional bond to her baby. Like I couldn't even stand to hear my babies crying. That was hard for me. I would get like, my heart would be pumping. I would start breaking out in a sweat. And it's just, you know, mom is super connected to the baby, especially if she's breastfeeding. So dads, just try to remember that. Take that in mind. If she starts crying over something real little, like crying over spilled milk, like if mom you know, like pumped a whole bunch of milk and then someone went in the counter and spilled it, or someone took out breast milk and defrosted it and she didn't know and now she has to throw it out. Those are some things that can make a breastfeeding mom cry. So yeah, dads, just be there with the support. We definitely need that while we're breastfeeding and the whole motherhood journey, you know, in general. But making sure that they have information for breastfeeding as well. Okay, let's see here. Oh, thank you, Brother Mark. Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any foods that increase or decrease milk supply? Yes. So oats are really good for increasing your milk supply. I heard some kind of conflicting information about fenugreek, so I don't know if I want to recommend it or not. But there's lactation tea, lactation cookies. They're probably oat based. What else do we have? We have mommy's milk. That's another tea that you can take, and I think that does have a little bit of fenugreek in there. But yeah, anything with oats is really good. I ate like oatmeal. I will alternate between eggs and oatmeal, so that definitely does help. Um, and the main thing, you just want to make sure that you're staying hydrated, because remember with breastfeeding, they're getting what you take in. So whatever you eat and you drink, and breast milk mostly is fat and liquid, or fat and water. So you want to make sure that you're drinking enough water so that you're not dehydrated, because if you don't drink enough, you can get dehydrated and then it's definitely going to affect your breast milk supply. So you want to make sure that you're drinking enough water. So try to limit like teas, iced teas, caffeinated teas. Definitely want to like just try to keep your caffeine consumption to a good level, because that's dehydrating. But yeah, oats are great. Yeah, oats. I think beans as well are really good. Of course, you want to keep up with your calcium. Oh, and definitely take your prenatals while you're breastfeeding. Now, I didn't do this, so that's shame on me. But definitely, if you're still breastfeeding, if you're breastfeeding after birth, just take your prenatals until you wean. I think that's the best way to make sure that mom is still getting in all the nutrients while the nutrients are going out for the baby while you're breastfeeding. Okay, how do you know your baby's actually getting enough milk? Is actually getting milk when they're sucking? So there's a couple of ways to know. So again, you'll see their little ears moving, you know, when they swallow, because your jaw is connected to your ears. So if you see the ears moving up and down, you know they're getting milk. If you can hear them swallowing, so I would say until you have like enough experience with your baby while you're breastfeeding, try not to do breastfeeding like around loud TVs or anything like that, because you definitely want to make sure that you can hear them swallowing. And then your breast, the way that they feel from when you start your session versus how they'll feel afterwards. So especially like in the beginning, when your milk comes in, they'll be really engorged, they'll feel really heavy. You may feel like lumps in them, and that's just the milk, you know, overflowing or being backed up until the baby releases it. But you should notice that your breasts feel a little bit lighter after your baby has breastfed. And that sometimes can help you to remember which side you left off on as well. So they should feel different. Your breast should feel different after your baby is done breastfeeding. And of course, as long as they're gaining weight, you know your baby's getting enough milk, enough breast milk. Okay, what kind of diet should a mother be on that's breastfeeding? Oh, should a mother be on that's breastfeeding? Anything particular? Um, as long as you're breastfeeding, you pretty much can eat whatever you want. Just make sure that you're getting in enough calories, because breastfeeding does burn about or up to 500 calories a day. You know, every woman's body is different. So not really anything that I recommend. I would just say there's a couple of things you do want to stay away from, which is alcohol, of course, any kinds of drugs. You want to stay away from that. You kind of want to follow the same guidelines that you followed while you was pregnant. So you just want to, like, lunch meats. I know some women really crave lunch meat or whatever, but if you are eating lunch meat, maybe heat up your sandwich or maybe cook the meat when you make a sandwich. Raw seafood, sushi and stuff like that, because you don't have that placenta. When you were pregnant, the placenta kind of act like as a barrier between the toxins between you and the baby. But there's still some things that cross that placenta barrier between mom and the baby. So that's why some foods aren't recommended while you're pregnant, but you don't really have that barrier when you're breastfeeding. So literally everything that mom takes in, the baby's going to have, whether it's good or bad. So just try to keep that in mind when you're breastfeeding. I know some women, if they drink alcohol, they think they have to pump and dump. I don't think you have to anymore, but there does have to be like some kind of waiting period or whatever. So just try to keep that in mind while you're breastfeeding, that whatever you take in, your baby will as well. Do all women lose weight when breastfeeding? Auntie asked this question. No, they don't. Oh man. Okay, so there are some benefits to breastfeeding, and I do want to do a video on this just because I want to make sure that the information is out there. But all women do not lose weight while breastfeeding, and I am one of those unlucky few. And I knew it had to do with breastfeeding because, okay, so if you've seen any of my videos, I had really bad morning sickness when I was pregnant. So I didn't really gain that much weight during my pregnancy. But whatever I ended off my pregnancy at, that's the weight I stayed until I got pregnant with the next one. And I did have mine all back to back. So I didn't really give myself time to lose weight in between either. But I also could not lose weight. And I tried. Like with my first, I had an emergency C-section. So no sushi. Well, yeah, sushi's not recommended because it's raw seafood. So if you get like the cooked seafood, or just try to be careful with the sushi, because if it does have pathogens in it, so a lot of cooking processes cook out some of that harmful bacteria, but with sushi it's not cooked out, so you just want to be careful with the sushi. But yeah, so with my first, I tried like exercising, or I tried like cutting calories, or just doing the stuff that I did before on my weight loss journey, and it didn't work. Anytime I did too much, and even like too much exercising, I would notice my breast milk supply would decrease. And then at that point it was like, do you want to lose the weight now, or do you want to breastfeed? And so for me, breastfeeding was more important than losing the weight. So I just could not do a lot of exercising. I could not cut calories, and I just couldn't lose that weight while I was breastfeeding. Yes, vegetable sushi. There you go. Some fried tempura. That's fine. So yeah, not every woman can lose weight while they're breastfeeding. And trust me, I tried. I tried with my first. I tried with my second. By the time my third came out, I already knew the deal. I was like, no, I'm just gonna have to wait until I'm done weaning him to try to lose weight. And I do want to make a video about this, because that is one of the reasons why I stopped breastfeeding. Not because my supply went down or I didn't still enjoy it. I just did not really want to be at a bigger weight anymore. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I stopped. But some women just can't. If they cut calories, they'll notice a decrease in their milk supply. If they try to exercise too much, they may notice, because your body is always going to try to protect the baby. So even while you're pregnant, some women, they're not comfortable with the weight gain or whatever, but your body's going to do whatever it needs to sustain the life. And if you're breastfeeding, it's still going to put baby first. So it's going to protect your supply. In order for mom to breastfeed, you do have to have like a certain percentage of body fat and just water weight and everything that goes into breastfeeding. And so, yeah, you may be one of those women that can't lose weight breastfeeding. I know I was. So, okay. I don't see any more questions. I'm trying to think of any other thing on here. Let me see, what time is it? Ooh. Okay. Okay, so some benefits I just want to talk real quickly of breastfeeding. So increased bonding, of course, is a good benefit of breastfeeding. Of course, you can bond with your baby if you're not a breastfeeding mom, but it's just something about that bond of breastfeeding your baby, and they'll look at you and you're just like their whole entire world while you're breastfeeding. And sometimes, that's what I wanted to say again about the hormones. When you stop breastfeeding, you will it could bring a shock to your body too. So that's why I recommend definitely like weaning slowly and not cold turkey. There are some cases where you have to stop breastfeeding like quickly. So say if mom has to be on a new medication, like some medications are not safe for breastfeeding, so you may have to wean cold turkey. But again, with the hormones, when you wean, you'll notice that your body goes through a hormonal process as well. You may be depressed, or you may just feel a little bit sad about that part of your journey, and you know, you and your child's bond ending. But you'll always find other ways to bond with your baby, besides just the breastfeeding as your baby gets older. But yeah, so that's one benefit of breastfeeding. And if you are one of those moms that can lose weight breastfeeding, that's a benefit. I know some women have had great success because breastfeeding does burn so many calories a day, so it's kind of equivalent to working out. If you're one of those moms that can lose weight breastfeeding, so that is one benefit of breastfeeding. And breast milk has everything that the baby needs. So it has the right amount of fats, it has the right amount of protein, it has the right amount of liquid, and just like everything that the baby needs. And it's already warm. So that's great too. You don't have to worry about heating up anything. You don't have to worry about, you know, is it the right temperature or does it have the right nutrients? It's already made, it's already the right temperature, and it's just straight to the baby. I do want to make some more videos for my pumping moms out there, because there are some certain like guidelines that you want to follow if you're pumping and storing your breast milk. So you don't want your breast milk to be out for, I think it's longer than 4 hours, because it can go bad, because breast milk is it's a living thing. So you want to make sure if you're pumping and you're storing your breast milk, you can store it in your fridge up to a week. You can store it in your freezer up to 6 months. And so, and also when you're like reheating breast milk, you don't want to heat it up in a microwave. The best way is to, I like to like leave it out, like, so put it in the refrigerator. If you're thawing it out from the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, and then you can leave it out on a counter a little bit, or you can take like a pot, put in a little bit of water, and just put it in there until it warms up. And you just kind of want to just gently do like that to the bottom. You don't want to just shake it up. That kind of ruins some of the milk proteins. So just be really careful when you're storing your breast milk and heating it up. And definitely you want to sanitize your flanges. Those are the parts that go on your breast, and all of the parts and everything like that. You want to do that at least once a day if you're breastfeeding. I know some moms put the whole entire put their parts into the refrigerator until they're ready to sanitize and clean it at night. You can do that as well, but definitely want to make sure that you're keeping everything as clean as possible, because bacteria and pathogens can kind of build up kind of fast in those parts when you're pumping and using bottles and all of that stuff. Okay, so I think I'm going to end this. I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. If anyone has any more questions, does anyone have any more questions? Let me make sure I got them all here. Okay. Okay. All right, so I think I answered all the questions. Thank you for everyone. Okay, how important are breastfeeding clothes? I would say kind of kind of important, especially if you're out in public. You don't want to wear, so like this dress is not great for breastfeeding. But a lot of like button ups, or so say like a regular, like a tank top shirt or whatever, and having like a sweater to go on top, you know, just in case you get cold. I just try to wear breastfeeding friendly clothes, because you just want to be able to have easy access whenever the baby does get hungry. Of course, you know, in Holiness we have covers and everything like that. So one I really liked was like a shawl, and you could wear it as a part of your outfit. You could wear it as like a scarf. And so yeah, I just kept that right in my baby bag. But yeah, just trying to wear breastfeeding friendly clothes, and especially tops and stuff that you wouldn't have to like pull up over your head. So any kind of tank top. They have breastfeeding clothes. I didn't like them just because I didn't like the support. I didn't feel like they were very supportive. But breastfeeding tank tops. They even have breastfeeding shirts that have like an X. And you can, you know, breastfeed that way. Breastfeeding bras. Yeah, so stuff that's easy to breastfeed in, because you don't want to be fiddling around too much when you got a screaming baby on your hands and they're ready to breastfeed. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. I'm going to try to see how I can do this on YouTube. But thank you for everyone who tuned in. Thank you for all the questions and watching and supporting. Oh, you want to see the babies? We can show them, and then absolutely must. Okay, let's show the little breastfed babies. Look how big and strong they are. Here's a baby Kenjo. They was just playing around at the park. That's a baby Kenjo. He looks like such a big boy with his haircut. So here we go. That's baby Kenjo. You can move it back a little bit if you want. Here's baby Mackie boy. Oh, and Saya, you're gonna take over my whole thing. Matt, we couldn't see you. We couldn't see you. Come here. Right here, Matt. Okay, Matt, come on. They want to see you. Here's the other one. Here's Mackie boy. I can't see the questions anymore. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so you want to say bye? Say bye. Say thank you for watching. Okay, thank you to everyone who watched. I'm going to try to do some more of these lives because I want to get up my experience doing them, and I want to be able to talk to people in live time. So I think that's really cool. Thank you for watching. I have my regular videos, which will be on Wednesday and Saturday coming up, which is my weight loss update videos. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you for all the support on my YouTube channel. And thank you for watching this live video. And I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.